Scene A, shot one, take two.
This is a quick look at the making of a kids' TV series using virtual production.
Tága má, buine mís trí las an nó díreach an uair seo.
We're mixing comedy and history here, which, as it happens, is a perfect vehicle for virtual production, where the slightly uncanny look of the virtual world actually adds to the style and feel of the show. It's allowed us to be in medieval Ireland, Dublin in 1910, sewers, dams, and abandoned warehouses without once leaving the studio. I was the consultant and on-set virtual production supervisor on this series, which is called Am Abu, made by Wonder Pics, who are a TV company based in Cork in Ireland. In this 10-part series for Irish language TV channel TG Cara, two kids go back in time to witness big events in Irish history.
Tá sé ná dul bhaile.
While trying to stop the meddling Lou from changing what actually happened. A couple of years back, I was involved in making a comedy series for BBC Wales using virtual production, or VP, and a lot of the basic techniques are the same, but we've added quite a bit more to this show and learnt new skills too, including the breakthrough of allowing actors to open and shut virtual doors, more of which later. So, like that comedy series I produced, the actors are shot on green screen, with all the sets being virtual and made in Unreal Engine. This is Epic Games' incredible bit of software that is being used worldwide on pretty much all virtual production projects that require real-time output. One of the main requirements from Wonder Pics producers Kira and Anne was that they didn't want to do extensive post-production, so what was recorded on set had to be pretty much the final picture. This has its good and bad points. It really concentrates the mind when you know that there is no possibility of tweaking to be done later, no fixing in post, but it also means you have to accept some compromises in the interests of sticking to the shooting schedule. So, real-time virtual production, 10 25-minute episodes to shoot, lots of pages of script a day, and final picture generated on set. Kira and Anne allowed me a generous but full-on 3 weeks of prep before we even started shooting. As before, I recommended chroma key over the more flashy and expensive LED volume alternative. We didn't have any budget for bespoke sets, and we needed virtual floors and virtual set elements that the actors could interact with. Not something that LED screens really lend themselves to, even though they can look amazing and don't have issues with reflective costumes, hair, green spill and so on. The setup is, to be honest, very complex. But the principle is quite simple. We have a real camera and a virtual camera. If the camera moves in the real world, it moves too in the unreal world. The two camera outputs are combined using chroma key in the Blackmagic Ultimate. Anything that's green in the real world gets removed to reveal the virtual world behind. With both cameras moving in sympathy with each other, that allows us to create the illusion of a person walking along like this, with all the parallax and perspectives matching. This shot also illustrates a technique we used quite a lot. We have two sources to work with, the camera and the background, but we can also make some of the background appear in the foreground, which is a really useful tool, especially for final output. As you can see, it really helps sell this shot, and providing our actor Sean hits his marks, we can believe he's walking along a real path. To get this illusion to work, for starters you need to know where your real camera is in 3D space. We used the latest version of the Moses tracking system, Star Tracker Max. A sensor mounted on the camera looks up at reflective stickers on the ceiling and compares what it's seeing with a map stored in its memory. Just like ancient navigators used the stars in the sky to work out where they were in the world, the Star Tracker uses the stars in the ceiling to work out the camera's position and rotation. The Moses system worked very well throughout, and once calibrated, never needed recalibrating or tweaking. Literally come in the morning and turn it on, and everything is in exactly the same place, nothing has drifted. The camera we specified was a Blackmagic Studio 6K Pro camera, sending out HD pictures down an umbilical cable to the video village. The Moses positional data is sent back along the same umbilical. In the video village, or two tables at right angles to each other, the slightly lashed together setup which worked well and reliably throughout the filming period, consisted of a number of distinct components. So here is a quick run through them. A sync generator, sending out a reference signal, keeping everything locked together. A router or hub, which takes in lots of video feeds and distributes them to all the other equipment. I would say for a project like this, a router is pretty much essential, as you need to be able to take one feed and send it to several places. The camera output, for instance, goes to 4 different devices. Plus, you want to be able to look at various feeds on monitors without constantly having to plug and replug cables. A Blackmagic Studio converter is the next item, a clever box which sends power, timecode and return vision to the camera, and receives the pictures back from the camera, all down one Ethernet cable. Once turned on, nothing more to do. Next to that is an Ultimate HD, the industry standard live chroma key, and more about that later. Beneath the 2 small boxes, this item with lots of wires going in and out is a network switch. All the devices are linked together on a local network, and this is where all the cables meet up. You need a network for the tracking system to send data to Unreal Engine, but it also allows you to control other devices from a PC, like the router and the Ultimat. You can also download and view your recordings via the network, so this rather boring box is actually key to the whole operation. Beneath that, we've got a Key Pro rack recorder, which records the final output video on one of its 2 1TB hard drives. We also recorded clean camera output and clean Unreal output on these 2 Key Pro Mini recorders. This little device is a Zoom audio mixer. It's being used here to generate the master timecode, which gets sent to all the devices and embedded into all the recordings. Each frame of video has a unique timecode, and each device starts a frame at the same time thanks to the sync generator mentioned earlier. This box is a NAS, or Network Attached Storage, which was our master repository for all the rushes. Finally, we had 2 well-spec PCs running Unreal Engine, one rendering out the virtual background, which comes down the video cable into the router, and another recording tracking data and controlling the 3 recorders. Both PCs were running Moses's VP Pro software, which is a plugin for Unreal. This adds a lot of useful controls and features to the basic Unreal setup and is especially designed for broadcast and film production. So, with the equipment in place, time to make a TV program. We prepped the virtual sets 2 to 3 days in advance, which worked well as the designer Ryan here was able to work on set alongside me. We bought sets from Fab, the Unreal marketplace, which we then modified quite extensively. The reason Ryan's togged up for the Arctic is that we were filming in a temporary studio in an old brewery in the centre of Cork in the middle of winter. Now, most of the time virtual production is incredibly creative and satisfying, and you can get through lots of locations in just one day. But there are some limiting factors which aren't that apparent at first until you come to shoot. And of course this shot here was the first one we did, with the crew filming virtual production for the first time. The issue we have to get our heads around is that the real and Unreal worlds are the same size. A metre in Unreal Engine is a metre in the real world. So if your green screen set is 7 metres wide, that's the maximum distance you can have people travelling, even though on an exterior set that's not very far at all. You can have set extensions which make the world feel bigger, like this, but the actors themselves can only move as far as the width and length of the green screen area. So Oshin, our director on this block, modified his original shot and we got something which worked in the space we had. On the plus side, in a real location you can't move walls and distracting objects out of the way that easily, or change lighting really quickly, or film from inside a fireplace. So there are plenty of good things about filming with virtual sets which outweigh the disadvantages. A couple of days into the shoot and we're all getting much more used to this innovative way of filming, so we can achieve some quite complex shots. And because we've got a router, it's easy to swap feeds between devices, so you can even do some layering, all on set, all on the day of filming, done, signed off, on to the next shot. On this one we've got the lead character Lou talking to his alter ego, and on this shot he uses a bit of magic to freeze the other characters while not being frozen himself.
Ní higan an burt amadach seo, achas misha an leach.
So which is better for VP, LED or green screen? The answer is undoubtedly, it depends. But for this shoot, my answer is definitely to use green screen. I really like shooting this way. Take this setup as an example. The actors are standing around a packing case which they're using as a makeshift table, but the packing case is not really there. So how did we do this? Well, the MOSIS software makes it relatively easy to have the illusion of virtual objects appearing in front of the actors. An extra feed from the Unreal Engine, called a garbage mat, tells the Ultimat to exclude some of the live action camera from the composite, effectively making some virtual objects the top layer. It's the same technique as the shot we had earlier with Lou walking along the path with the grass in front of him. So here's the shot, all moving nicely in perspective, and the actors are behind the table. There's a lot going on here, so looking at the shot again, notice the garbage mat also takes out the roof. The box will appear in shot soon, and without the mat, this would be the result. But the Ultimat is built to do clever things like this live. Here's the final shot again, and as you can see, we've also done a quick colour grade, with the Ultimat doing that too. Now with a bit of setting up, you could do this shot with an LED wall, with the virtual packing case as a separate element overlaid on top of the camera image. But what if you want the actors to lean on the table? This is where green screen comes into its own. I asked that we had a small set of green boxes available to us, so with a bit of reverse engineering, we can measure our green box and I can make our virtual packing case the same size. Once we've got that right, it's then a question of precisely matching up the real and the virtual. This is camera assistant Connor helping me line things up. We're pretty good, but we've not quite got the box in the right position yet. Connor's legs are being obscured by the real box, but we can still see a bit of them on top of the virtual box. By the time we come to do the actual shot though, we've got everything lined up, and the actors can lean on the box, and are even casting shadows on a packing case that isn't there. This is all done live, there is no post-production here at all. This would be impossible if shooting in an LED volume, unless of course you used a real packing case rather than a virtual one. But if you don't have the budget, or perhaps like us, you have the idea to do this on the day, and haven't got time to make or find a prop, then green screen gives you so much more flexibility. So we did this quite often, using a green flat to help sell the illusion of a doorway, for instance. This is a sort of automatic garbage mat, which casts real shadows on people behind it, and doesn't cover up people who walk in front of it. On this shot, we're using both techniques. The open door on the right is a foreground object, giving the illusion of our actor behind the door. And the actor behind the barrel is hidden by our trusty green box again. Even though they're not the same shape, we've made the virtual barrel the same height as the upturned box. Looking closely, you can see that the barrel and box don't line up, but this is a wide shot which in the edit will be there quite fleetingly, together with close-ups and cutaways, so it's best not to get too precious about everything looking perfect. So that brings us neatly to the previously advertised virtual door. A lot of the scripts in this series had people entering and leaving rooms through doors. The first few times this happened, we just had to leave doors open in the virtual set. Not the greatest solution, so we worked on making a device which would open a virtual door, operated by the actors themselves. We did this using an old 5-tracker and a piece of green wood on a hinge. Simple, but it worked. We had 2 Vive base stations looking into the set, and the Vive tracker sending data to Unreal via a clever bit of software called Reality Field. Then a simple blueprint isolates the Z rotational data and applies just that to the virtual door. Move the hinge bit of wood in the real world, and the door opens in the virtual. And as long as Sophie remembers to go around the door on the way out rather than through it, we've got the illusion to work. So back to the original scene again, and this is one of the earlier takes. It's a real hinge, so it will occasionally bounce back. After a few more false starts, this is the final take. And there's one other thing going on under the hood, or bonnet here, so let's just rewind it. How is Sean able to be behind the door, and then in front of it? Again, there's no post-production here, everything has to happen live. Well, just at this point, I've got to be super switched on, and switch off the garbage mat on the Ultimat, so now Sean can be in front of the door for the rest of the scene. On now to an example which shows how you can get quite a lot out of a small space if you do a little bit of planning. The shot starts on actors Art and Sophie, who play the 2 heroes of the series, and then the shot moves down to reveal the castle corridor behind. After Sophie and Art are no longer in front of the wall on the right, I turn that element's garbage mat on, which means it's now the top layer of our composite shot. This is my view from the video village, with the garbage mat on the monitor. Once I've switched the wall on, I can give a cue to the actor to sidle his way unseen into the set, and then when our director Alana gives him a second cue, he can emerge from behind the wall. And after a brief chat to the bungling guards, in just a few moments he'll open the furthest door on the left, walking behind the nearer door, which is already a foreground object. If you look closely in this take, we can see that we haven't got everything quite in the right place, so a little tweak to the actor's mark and the rotation of the door is required before we do another take. This also shows how a well-positioned garbage mat, which is tracked to the camera movement, can help you use just about every available inch of the green screen. As before, there was no post-production on this shot. I did clean up maybe 3 or 4 shots in post, but that was done in the video village on the day we shot them, so what was delivered to the edit was final picture. The key pieces of kit were the camera, the tracking system, the Ultimat, and of course Unreal Engine. The camera was a great workhorse, it's incredibly cheap for what it can do, the compromise being that basic things like playback and file naming are not on the camera, and if you are recording on an SSD attached to the camera, you have to record 6K even if you only want HD. It takes standard AF mount lenses, and we had 6 primes in total, all with their focal length and lens distortion calibrated using MOSIS software. The MOSIS hardware was rock solid. The software was also solid, but is working as a bolt-on to the beast that is Unreal Engine. It does simplify a lot of the setting up of each project, but you still need to know Unreal really well to operate it properly. Collaboration with MOSIS on this project was great, as I was able to feedback issues to them, and they would often be able to send me a new version of the plugin with our particular issues resolved. For instance, the VP Pro plugin could originally talk to Blackmagic Hyperdeck recorders, but not our Arger recorders. During the 3 weeks prep, they remotely worked on an update, and by the time we started filming, we could connect our 3 Arger recorders, fire them all into record remotely, while also naming the recordings with a sensible file name, which is a version of the same file name as the MOSIS camera tracking data for that shot. And now any other customer who uses the latest version of VP Pro can control Arger recorders. As I said, Unreal Engine is a beast, and a lot of our time was spent optimizing sets and trying to work out why things were flickering when we'd done everything we could think of to stop it flickering, and then weird things like light leaking through gaps in walls would suddenly become noticeable, and well, 100 other things cropped up on the day, and you just spend your time firefighting and finding workarounds. Ideally, we would have spent much more time optimizing sets, but that would have literally added weeks to the prep time. In a way, you're forced to up your game and find solutions on the fly. So by the second block of filming, we were getting much better results. If I was going to give the prize for the best bit of kit though, it would have to be given to this little box, the Ultimat HD. It's a perfect example of the way Blackmagic has been making what was once super expensive kit available to lower budget productions. When you really get deeper into the software, you can control so much and also get stuff working live like shadows that even top-end post-production keyers will really struggle with. Apart from Unreal Engine, this is the one piece of the jigsaw that was absolutely key to the whole production. So that's a briefish look at a very enjoyable project where I learnt so much, drank a lot of Beamish, and helped get a whole new set of people immersed in and familiar with virtual production.
Lou, stop!
Ní very simmer, good Joel!
Oh, Kai Grevshin Peenver.